How ironic is it that the first little bit of gaming news that I read about this morning is another article about Square Enix and something else someone at that company has said or done that's just completely ignorant. So, Square Enix is now scaring their own fan base with talks of potentially supporting NFTs. But the question remains, who exactly said what? And how should you respond as a fan? So it seems Square Enix president, this is the president of the company, Yosuke Matsuda, he issued a New Year's letter. And in this New Year's letter, he did not mention any specific games, any of their upcoming games, be it Final Fantasy 16 or Forspoken or anything. Instead of focusing on any specific games, the whole letter seems to be about his thoughts on NFTs and the blockchain. And of course, anyone who knows anything about NFTs are all about the blockchain. Here's a specific quote taken directly from the letter. The basic and environmental technologies to enable blockchain games already exist, and there have been an increase in the societal literacy and acceptance of crypto assets in the past few years. We will keep a close eye on societal shifts in this space while listening to the many groups of users that populate it and ramp up our efforts to develop a business accordingly, with an eye to potentially issuing our own tokens in the future. So, this isn't really a pitch as much as it's a promise. This is definitely going to happen. They're going to try it. Square Enix is definitely going to attempt NFTs. It's unavoidable. You can believe me when I say, at some point, they will attempt this. I mean, after all, did you see what they did to the Avengers IP? Did you see the travesty that game turned out to be? All because they couldn't help themselves to infest that game with loot boxes and microtransactions. So if you saw what they did with the Avengers IP, and you also take a notice of what they did to ruin one of their other upcoming games, which is Babylon's Fall, I believe it's called. Yeah, they completely ruined that. That game initially was supposed to be a single-player game, but they have since turned it into a multiplayer live service type of thing. And Avengers and Babylon's Fall, those games are just the beginning. Square Enix is going to keep trying this until they get it right. There's also what they did to the City of Final Fantasy NT, which should have also been, just a straightforward single-player game with the multiplayer component. And instead, they turned that into a live service game as well, with numerous DLC packs that were overly expensive. Square Enix is definitely going to attempt this. And then if you go on to see, what else he said in the letter, I see 2021 not only as Metaverse Year 1, but also as NFTs Year 1. This guy, I'm sure, knows that NFTs are not good for gaming, nor are they good for the consumer, but he doesn't care about that, clearly. The only thing he cares about is lining his pockets. The same as the rest of these COOs and CEOs that run these gaming companies. This guy is no different from, the guys who run Activision or EA or Ubisoft. They're all the same. And I just made a video about this because Ubisoft right here also announced their NFT plans, and then Atari announced theirs. I've already made a video talking about NFTs, what NFTs are, why NFTs are bad for the gaming business, and anyone who thinks or tries to claim that NFTs are good for gaming, either they don't know what they're talking about or they're full of shit. It's one of the two. There's nothing that NFTs are going to bring to gaming that's good. Absolutely nothing. Microtransactions and loot boxes already did enough damage to the industry. EA in particular got a lot of backlash over their inclusion of microtransactions in Star Wars Battlefront 2, which turned into a big legal fiasco. They were basically forced to do a 360 on that game, and not only improve it and add more content, but also to permanently remove the microtransactions and loot boxes that was in that game. And the only reason that happened is because that's Star Wars. Square Enix doesn't have an IP that matches Star Wars. So there's really nothing stopping them from attempting something like this. But it's not all doom and gloom. there is something that can be done on the behalf of the fans. Because at the end of the day, for the people who buy these games, it's all on you what these companies can or can't do because you're the ones who is investing into these products. All of this is on you. And just speaking specifically about Square Enix does not have a good track record. Almost every major Square Enix game that's been released over the past 7 years has been worse with each release. With Final Fantasy 15, they released a game that was incomplete, that was in development for 10 years. With Dissidia Final Fantasy NT, they completely abandoned what made Duodecim and the earlier Dissidia games great and tried to turn that game into a live service multiplayer only title. And it bombed. It completely failed. With Kingdom Hearts 3, they released a half-assed game that didn't have anywhere near the amount of content that it should have had, complete with a poorly written story, a game that was in development for a very long time, another game that had a 10-plus year gap that shouldn't have been, and then they tried to overcharge with that game's DLC, and that game's DLC was terrible. Then there's what they did to the Tomb Raider series. You had 2 great games, and then they go ahead and release some nonsense, which basically ruined the whole trilogy. Then there's what they did to the Final Fantasy VII remake. They cut out more than 90% of the content from the original game, blew up the opening 5 hours from the original game, ruined some of the depictions of the characters from the original game, and basically destroyed the story by introducing something stupid in the end game. And then, of course, there's the now infamous PC release of Final Fantasy VII, the remake, and the upcoming Forspoken, which is clearly overpriced on PC, and console for that matter. Now it seems to be getting worse. They want to introduce NFTs to their audience. You people keep supporting this company, so I mean, this is what happens. This is what's going to happen if you don't put your foot down. But like I said before, there is something that you can do as a fan, and the best thing you can do, being 100% straight up with you, the best thing you can do to avoid this situation is, number one, you need to speak up against Square Enix. Go on social media, go on Twitter, and directly tell these people, you do not want NFTs in your games. You do not want NFTs in your video games because you're not an idiot. Number 2, do not buy any of their games. I don't care what your excitement level is for some of these upcoming games, Final Fantasy 16, Forspoken, Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin, Final Fantasy anything, or any of their other franchises, Tomb Raider, Outriders, Deus Ex, Kingdom Hearts, it doesn't matter. Don't buy any of their games. They want to introduce anti-consumer practices into their games and try and insult you and your intelligence and make you look stupid. Fine. Don't buy shit from them. Don't buy anything. The best thing you can do is speak up and basically issue these people a warning. Just the same as Stalker fans have done. Stalker 2 developer GSE Game World. They were planning a Stalker metaverse that was full of NFTs, and they royally pissed off their audience as a result. And because they pissed off their audience, GSC Game World ended up canceling their plans for this metaverse. And they issued a statement on top of that. This is what they said. We hear you. Based on the feedback we received, we've made a decision to cancel anything NFT related in Stalker 2. The interests of our fans and players are the top priority for the team. We're making this game for you to enjoy, whatever the cost is. If you care, we care too. So that's the only reason why I'm still going to support GSC Game World, is because they realized the mistake that they were making, and they issued a statement and took action to reverse their decision. Square Enix more than likely isn't going to do that unless enough people speak out and people stop investing into their games if they go far enough with this NFT idea. So really, at the end of the day, all of this is up to you, the people. Do you want NFTs in your video games? If the answer to that question is no, then do like the Stalker fans have done. Speak out and stop giving Square Enix money. Really, you should stop giving them money anyway because they're a terrible publisher, but that's neither here nor there. You can think Square Enix is great all you wish. The fact of the matter is, NFTs entering into the gaming business will be another final nail in the coffin for the gaming industry at large. That's not conjecture. That's not hyperbole. That's cold hard fact.